Hi, I'm Sandy Kemsley of column2.com. I'm here today for the Trisotech blog with a practical example of why your process notifications matter. In my last video, I talked about what happens when your end-to-end process is actually a series of disjointed processes. In short, if a problem happens in a later part of the process, then an earlier section may never hear about the problem, or at least not the details of why the problem occurred and what has to be done to fix it. This is a critical customer satisfaction problem because it means that your process drops the ball along the way of the customer journey. And as I pointed out in that video, timely and accurate notification of process problems is a solution here. But what happens when the notifications themselves are the problem? I'm going to give you an example of another order-to-cash process where inaccurate and contradictory notifications cause a lot of customer frustration. And as you might guess, I'm the customer here again. We've all become experts in order-to-cash processes in the past 2 years, at least from the customer side. But all of you are in businesses that serve customers in some way, and there are lessons to be learned from how to handle process notifications properly, even if the process itself goes off track. Now, I'm not going to talk about kitty litter this time, and in fact, the product being delivered isn't even relevant. What is important is how I was notified about what was happening with my transaction. Now, this was an office supplies order, but I'm going to use language as if this were any customer-facing transaction to make it easier for you to match it up with what you're doing with your processes. So let's consider day 0. Day 0 is the day that the customer, me, initiated the transaction or placed the order. And here's the notifications that I received throughout the process. Day 0. Expected completion is on day 4. Okay, day 2 would have been better, but day 4 is fine. We can live with that. On day 1, notification. Transaction hasn't started yet. Okay, that's fine. On day 3, transaction is going to complete tomorrow, which is day 4. Perfect, just exactly as we thought. And then on day 4, the transaction hasn't started yet, and we don't know when the completion date is. We'll update you when we know about that. On day 5, the transaction has now started and it's expected to complete on day 7. Now this is 3 days later than I was originally hoping for, but it'll happen. So then on day 6, I get a notice that the completion is expected to happen today. So this is a delivery, so it's the completion today. It's like, okay. Later that day, 1 p.m., the transaction completed. I actually got the delivery and I got a notification that I got the delivery. Then an hour later, I got a final notification that said it was going to be completed the next day. Yes, day 7, it's now going to do my delivery. The delivery that happened an hour before that. So that obviously can't happen because the delivery already happened. There should be no reason I'd be receiving a notice that the delivery would be happening in the future. Now, to make matters worse, some of these notifications arrive by text, some were by email, some were visible on their website and their app. So what's even happening here? Now, I don't know what happens in the internals, but I'm going to assume that the mismatch between the different platforms is due to incorrect interfaces on their messaging gateway. But even assuming that one of these is supposed to be accurate, the notification history is confusing and it's inaccurate. And if I had to guess, I would say there's 2 problems in the underlying processes and systems. Again, I have no insight into what their systems actually look like, but just an educated guess here. So first of all, I'm going to guess that they decided to just bolt notifications on the side of their existing platforms and processes, rather than going back and refactoring and integrating notification triggers right into the processes directly. So the notification system is going to watch for certain changes, possibly through some indirect means like checking for a value in a transactional data store. It's kind of like figuring out that a new pope was elected by watching for the color of the smoke signal coming from the Sistine Chapel. But if the core system does something that the notification system wasn't programmed to handle, then it could easily miss it. So I could miss a notification because the notification system wasn't watching for some unexpected event. Now, the second thing that I'm assuming is going on here is that there's no single source of truth about a customer transaction history. I received a notification of delivery and the actual delivery. Then an hour later, I received a notification that it would be delivered the next day, which was clearly an impossible scenario. That means that Either the notification system received two messages from two different places with conflicting information and just fired them both out with reconciling, or even worse, there's two different notification systems. Now, neither of these scenarios is good. So what can we do to kind of get past some of these things or make these better? Now, even if you're not using a BPM system to automate your processes, think about modeling your order to cash process, or really any customer-facing process, using BPMN, and look at where you want to introduce message or signal events directly in the process so that you can be thinking about everywhere you might need to update a customer or anyone else for that matter. Now, just because a notification trigger fires, so a message or a signal event fires, it doesn't mean that you have to send a notification to the customer. It could be used for updating other parts of the process, like in my last video, for example, where a notification from the latter part of the process could have updated the initial part of the process to help diagnose the problem. Or maybe the customer has set preferences for the types of notifications that they want to receive, and they only want to know if something is being delivered or completed, not every step along the way. However, you'll probably want to collect all of these into some sort of transaction history data store that would then allow the customer to pull up a filtered view to see all of the potential notifications at a later date on their order page, even if they didn't get them in real time, if by text or email. So in an order to cash process, these notifications are usually just messages about the transaction history. And those of you who are using BPM systems, this will be pretty much your BPMS history log that's going on in there, where you can see what happens, or a filtered view of that history log as you go through there. But the point is that you need to be thinking about notifications when you create your processes, right from the design and modeling through to automation. Don't just slap them on the side as an afterthought, or you'll create a lot of customer dissatisfaction like my hapless supplier did. Now, I realize I'm a little bit obsessed with order to cash processes because I find these examples to be really interesting from a process analysis standpoint. Some companies do order to cash right and others don't. The difference usually isn't whether or not you deliver on the day you originally said you would. It's more about making sure that the customer has the accurate, up-to-date information for anything that will impact them. In the case of a delivery, for example, knowing the accurate delivery date in case they need to be home when the delivery is made. Or if they have something else going on in their lives that's dependent on receiving that delivery, it might be for a particular office project, or it might be a gift for a birthday party, whatever it is. It's like they need to know about what's happening with their order. So then, why is uncertainty or inaccuracy in notification such a problem? It's why don't you just sort of fire out all this information and not worry about it? Now think back to that psych class that you took in college and the behavioral experiments done by B.F. Skinner. Now, he taught pigeons that if they peck at a button, they get food. Now, he trained them on that, and then if they started providing the food kind of randomly based on their pecking behavior rather than every time that they're pecking, then the pigeons went a bit crazy and they obsessively pecked at the button. Now, in this case, the companies providing products and services are unwittingly taking on Skinner's role, and their customers are the poor pigeons, obsessively refreshing the order page to see when their transaction will be completed. This is no way to treat a pigeon, and definitely no way to treat your customers. That's it for today. You can find more of my writing and videos on the Trisotech blog or on my own blog at column2.com. See you next time.